As people begin to read the Bible and they begin to look at the documents printed on the printing press, read ancient church writers, there comes a rising movement within the church for reform. They know that the church is corrupt. It's not a secret. They know that the guys who are becoming pope are bribing each other and doing all kinds of dirty tricks in order to achieve the position of pope. Many people within the church want to get rid of that corruption. They want to make things right. They want a reform. And they begin asking questions and agitating to try to find a way to put reform into place. The Protestant Reformation actually breaks out in 1517 in what today we would call Germany, back then what they call the Holy Roman Empire. In 1517, why does the reform break out? What's going on that's such a big deal? There's a bunch of stuff that's going on. For one thing, the church is charging a lot of money. In fact, the church is charging for absolutely everything. Everything from weddings to confession. It all costs money. There is a charge for absolutely everything. Now, the reason there's a charge for everything is because at the top of the food chain, the Bishop of Rome is actually charging fees to other people for his blessing and so on. He's a busy guy. He only has time to do so many things, and he tries to cut back the demand by charging fees. The guys he's charging fees to, the bishops, they're going to pass the fees down to the next group of church leaders, and they're going to pass it down to the next group, and so on. There are fees for absolutely everything, and the money that the guys at the top of the pyramid are paying gets passed down until they're nickeling and diming everyone. This counts as corruption. Basically charging fees for everything, especially the fees for things that the church claims have to do with you getting into the afterlife, that's pretty rotten. There is also this sense of pluralism where people are not necessarily following the rules. They're actually taking over more than they can handle as far as trying to help people out with their religious beliefs, because they get paid for taking over more land. And therefore it doesn't matter if they can actually manage what they've got. They want more because they want the profit from it. The clergy themselves, I mentioned earlier that they are not well educated. Most of your local priests are not educated. They've never been to school. Many of them are illiterate. A lot of them are actually speaking the Latin in the Mass. They're saying the Christian Mass based on memorizing it phonetically. They don't understand the words. They can't read the words. They really have no idea what they're saying. They have just memorized the Mass phonetically, and they're saying it. Many of them don't even come from the country that they're serving in. So in Italy, you would have popes who are German or Spanish, deeply, deeply hated. They also have, I put it nicely on your slide, it says moral failings. Basically, these guys do some stuff that is really not okay. Almost every religious official during the 1500s here, by 1517, has a mistress and kids. In fact, there's an entire set of fees that you have, fines that you have to pay to have your wife and kids on the side. It's just kind of taken for granted by the church. Yeah, you're going to have a wife. Pay for it. Here, you have to owe us tax money if you have one. The common people see that, and they see the whole thing that, oh, that guy took a vow. Oh, well, he must not take his vow very seriously because he's got a wife and 3 kids. There's discontentment here. And there's also discontentment, going back to the fees, with this idea that money can buy blessings, grace, and happiness in the afterlife. There is the idea that you can leave your money to the church when you die, a pious bequest. You can actually use that to set up a perpetual mass where someone will pray for you to be forgiven, literally for days on end, in order to get you in to heaven, to shorten your time in purgatory. All through money. You're buying grace. Part of that corruption, or one of the hot buttons for corruption, is actually the idea of indulgences. Now, indulgences are not a new concept. They've been around since the 1100s, or possibly even before. And an indulgence comes from the idea of something called the treasury of heavenly merit. With this whole idea of doing good deeds get you into heaven, there is this concept that what if you do more good deeds than you need to get to heaven? Or what if you are killed fighting for your beliefs, which the church in the 1500s teaches that you get to go to heaven instantly for? Why on earth, what do you do with those extra good deeds? When you get to the pearly gates and you see St. Peter, what do you do with the good deeds you don't need to get in? What happens to them? Well, according to this teaching in the Treasury of Heavenly Merit, there's actually a giant storage space in heaven. There's a giant warehouse, and all the extra good deeds are assigned to that warehouse. Now, of course, the keys to the warehouse belong to the Pope. Remember that passage with, I give you the keys to the heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven, bound on earth, bound in heaven, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so the Pope has the keys to the Treasury of Heavenly Merit, God's garage. Inside the Treasury of Heavenly Merit are all the good deeds that people have done throughout the centuries that they no longer need or did not need to get into heaven, so they're stored in this location. Indulgences basically take some of those extra good deeds, some of those brownie points, and apply them to whoever buys the indulgence or whoever does something to get the indulgence. Doing things to get the indulgence is perfectly okay, but a number of people begin to object to the idea of buying the indulgence. They feel that that is, well, crass and commercial. They don't want the indulgences to be bought, or at least the guy taking the indulgences to be actually paying for them. So there is a strong sense of corruption with these indulgences, partially because the distribution of indulgences is so absolutely corrupt, and we'll get back to that. There's also a strong desire for reform, not only because of these indulgences, but also because of this sense of corruption. Indulgences by 1517 are not even individually written anymore. This is an indulgence from 1516, and if you look at it, you can see it's actually pre-printed. It's like a photocopy. This is actually printed on a printing press, except there are blank spaces in the indulgence. You can see the areas that are handwritten. That's the fill-in-the-blank portion of the indulgence. Basically, the idea is that you buy the indulgence, and when you buy the indulgence from an indulgence salesman, who is, for us, in our terms, compare indulgence salesman to slimy used car salesmen, and you have a good mental image of what they're like, okay? These indulgence salesmen literally stand on street corners and like pick people out of the crowd who look guilty. They're like, there's one guy, I mean, he'll pick someone out of the crowd and he'll say, hey, you look like you need some forgiveness. Is that lipstick on your collar? We can solve that problem by giving you some good deeds to your account. Would you like to buy a little bit of forgiveness today? One of the best of these indulgence salesmen is a dude by the name of Johann Tetzel. He works in the Holy Roman Empire, what today we would know as Germany. And Mr. Tetzel, he actually has posters printed up for his indulgence sales. He actually has cute little rhymes on the bottom of them, like when the coin in the coffer rings, the soul from purgatory springs. It's this idea of buying forgiveness, and as you can see in this indulgence, it's not even personalized forgiveness, it's fill-in-the-blank forgiveness. Now, this is not the only kind of indulgence that's out there. There are indulgences for pilgrimages, for going on a journey to show your faith. There are indulgences for penitent acts, for doing something to show how sorry you are for the bad deeds you've done. There are indulgences for doing something good, like funding someone to go fight for the church, paying for something that the Pope wants to build, like St. Peter's Basilica. However, many of these indulgences are flat out selling good deeds. And you can actually buy indulgences for your dead relatives, which makes them even more kind of slimy, icky, and shady. These indulgences are going to become a major hot button. People hate them. They see them as kind of the proof of all the corruption that's going on in the church. And the people who probably hate them the most